Have you ever had that feeling, that nagging sense that time itself is, well, off? That the rhythm of our lives, the way we mark our days and our years, just doesn't quite line up with something deeper, something far more ancient? There are whispers, in forgotten texts, whispers of a divine clock, a perfect way of measuring time that's been hidden from us by the very calendars we hang on our walls. And that question really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's about how we see our world and, more importantly, our place in a story that is so much bigger than us. What if that Gregorian calendar we all follow? What if it's more than just a way to schedule appointments? What if it's a veil, one that was intentionally designed to hide something from you? This is the core idea we have to grapple with. The ancient text suggests there's this profound disconnect between our time and God's time. They actually point to a deliberate altering of the appointed times and laws, a change that could literally obscure the very prophetic signs we were meant to be watching for. So, if our calendar is a deception, then where in the world do we find the truth? Well, according to the Book of Enoch and other texts found with the Dead Sea Scrolls, there is an answer, and it's found in what they call Enoch's perfect year. Think of it as a divine blueprint for time, something given to humanity a very, very long time ago. Okay, now look at this. The contrast here is just stark. On one side, you've got our Gregorian calendar. Let's be honest, it's kind of a mess, right? With its fractions of days, its months that don't line up, and feasts that just drift all over the week from one year to the next. But then on the other side, you have Enoch's calendar. It's a model of absolute divine order, 364 days. And that number isn't random. Oh no, it divides perfectly into 52 weeks of 7 days. Exactly. And this is where you see its divine perfection. The year always begins on a Wednesday. That's the fourth day of creation, the very day the sun and moon were created for signs and for seasons. See the connection? Each season is a perfect 91 days. And what that means is that the holy feasts are locked in place. Passover is always on a Wednesday. The Day of Atonement is always on a Friday, every single year without fail. It's a calendar of perfect, repeating symmetry. But its real power isn't just about measuring the present, it's about revealing the future. Because this calendar isn't just a clock, it's a key. It's the key that unlocks one of the most astonishing prophecies ever recorded, the apocalypse of weeks. Now, this is found in the Book of Enoch, and it divides 7,000 years of all human history into 10 weeks, with each week lasting 700 years. And this prophecy, which was written centuries before most of these events happened, is just breathtakingly accurate. In the second week, it foretells that a man will be saved. That's Noah. In the third, a plant of righteousness is chosen, Abraham. And then, in the sixth week, it predicts with chilling clarity that the house of dominion, the temple in Jerusalem, would be burnt with fire and the people dispersed, an event that happened in 70 AD, long after this was written down. You see, the prophecy's track record is its own validation. So, if the prophecy has been perfectly accurate about the past, then we have to ask, what does it say about right now, about our present? And this is where the timeline becomes intensely personal. This is about your place in the prophecy. According to this timeline, we, you, and I are living squarely within the ninth week. That's a 700-year period that began around the year 1675. We are inside this prophetic window. The final chapters of this incredible story are unfolding right now, as we speak. And the prophecy gives us a critical marker within this week that we're in, a single, specific year. And that year is 2025. Why that year? Because according to the timeline's calculation, 2025 marks the exact midpoint of our current 700-year prophetic week. It's not just another year on the calendar. It's described as a pivotal turning point, a fulcrum, a point upon which history itself is about to shift. And it's believed that this point marks the beginning of something truly monumental. And that something monumental is called the final Jubilee. In biblical tradition, a Jubilee is a 50-year cycle of release, of restoration. This analysis suggests that the pivot point of 2025 doesn't just mark a midpoint, it marks the beginning of the final 50-year Jubilee of mankind's age. According to this timeline, we are literally standing on the threshold of a new prophesied era. So if this is the start of the final Jubilee, it brings up a very urgent question. Could it also trigger the start of the most anticipated and maybe the most feared prophetic period in the entire Bible? I'm talking about the final 7 years described by the prophet Daniel.
Daniel's prophecy talks about a final week, which means a period of 7 years that will bring history as we know it to its dramatic climax. The sources we're looking at suggest that this 7-year countdown could be kicked off right at the beginning of this final Jubilee. This final countdown has a very clear sequence of events. A covenant is confirmed, then something critical happens in the middle of those 7 years, and it all culminates in what the Bible calls the abomination of desolation, before the prophesied return. The suggestion here is that the clock for this final sequence may be starting to tick right now.
So what does all this mean for you? What should you take away from this? It means the Enoch calendar isn't just some ancient curiosity. It's the key that unlocks a prophetic map. And that map shows us that we are no longer waiting for the end times to begin. We are living in them.
You know, this ancient knowledge was preserved for a reason. Enoch himself wrote that it wasn't for his generation, but in his words, for a remote one which is for to come. For us, the patterns are laid out, the timeline is converging on this very moment. The only question that's left to ask is, are you watching?